What if an entire Russian military fortress could be neutralized without a single bullet being fired? Right now, deep in the forests along the Lithuanian border, something unprecedented is happening. Germany, the nation that vowed never again to march its military toward Russian territory, has just crossed a line nobody thought they would dare to cross. If this is your first time discovering content that reveals what mainstream media won't tell you, do yourself a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now, smash the like button, because this algorithm needs to push this truth to millions of people. And share this video with anyone who still thinks Europe is sleeping while the bear growls at its doorstep. The world remembers Germany for its tanks rolling across Europe decades ago. Those memories carved deep scars into the collective consciousness of an entire continent. After World War II, Germany made a promise. Never again would it become a military aggressor. Never again would German soldiers stand on the front lines of European conflict. For nearly 80 years, Berlin kept that promise. The German military shrank, defense budgets were cut, diplomacy became the only weapon Germany wanted to wield. Meanwhile, Russia grew bolder. Putin expanded his influence. Hybrid warfare became his signature. Cyber attacks, election interference, energy blackmail, and the creeping shadow of military threats became the new normal across Europe. And for years, Germany did nothing but talk. Until now, something has changed. The sleeping giant has opened its eyes. German soldiers are back on the eastern frontier. But this time, they are not carrying just guns and grenades. They are carrying something far more dangerous, something invisible, something that can cripple an entire military machine without anyone even noticing until it is too late. These are not ordinary soldiers. They belong to a unit called ELOKA, electronic warfare specialists, ghosts in the spectrum. They do not fight with explosives. They fight with signals. They do not destroy buildings. They destroy communication networks. They do not kill soldiers. They paralyze command structures. And right now, they are positioned just 2 kilometers from the Belarus border, close enough to hear the footsteps of enemy troops in the forests, close enough to intercept every radio transmission, every radar pulse, every encrypted message that flows between Russian commanders and their forces in Kaliningrad. Let that sink in for a moment. Germany is now listening to Russia's military conversations in real time. They are mapping every frequency Y. They are analyzing every signal. They are building a digital picture of the entire Russian electronic battlefield. And Moscow has no idea how much Berlin already knows. This is not just a deployment. This is a declaration. A silent one, but a declaration nonetheless. To understand why this matters so much, you need to know about Kaliningrad. This small piece of Russian territory sits like a dagger pointed at the heart of Europe. Sandwiched between Poland and Lithuania, Kaliningrad is one of the most militarized zones on the planet. Russia has packed it with advanced missile systems, Iskander missiles that can reach Berlin in minutes, S-400 air defense batteries that can shoot down NATO aircraft before they even cross the border. And most dangerous of all, electronic warfare systems that have been jamming GPS signals, disrupting civilian flights, and blinding NATO radars for years. Russia has been using Kaliningrad as a fortress of fear, a constant reminder that Putin holds a loaded gun to Europe's head. The message was clear. Step out of line and we will pull the trigger. But Germany just called that bluff. By deploying ELOKA units to the Lithuanian border, Berlin has effectively surrounded Kaliningrad with an invisible net. Every signal that comes out of that fortress is now being monitored. Every communication between Kaliningrad and Moscow can be intercepted. Every piece of electronic camouflage that Russia thought made them invisible is being stripped away layer by layer. The hunters have become the hunted. Here is what makes ELOKA so terrifying. These units operate from mobile stations that look like ordinary trucks. You could drive past one on a highway and never know it was there. But inside those trucks is some of the most advanced electronic surveillance and warfare technology in the world. Software-defined radios that can scan thousands of frequencies simultaneously, signal analyzers that can decode encrypted military communications, jamming equipment that can cut off enemy transmissions with surgical precision, and all of it operates in complete silence. No explosions, no gunfire, just invisible waves of electromagnetic energy doing the work of an entire battalion. The teams manning these systems are not sitting in comfortable command centers far from danger. They are in the field. Some carry 30-kilogram backpacks filled with portable electronic warfare gear. They move on foot through dense forests. They set up positions within meters of the border. They establish independent micronetworks that allow them to communicate without being detected. These soldiers are trained to operate in the shadows of the electromagnetic spectrum. They are the new breed of warrior, the kind that wins wars before the shooting even starts. You are watching a channel that does not sugarcoat reality. If you appreciate that, then show some love. Drop a like on this video, subscribe if you have not already, and leave a comment below telling us what you think. Do you believe Germany is doing the right thing, or is this move pushing Europe closer to a war nobody can afford? Your voice matters. Let us hear it. Now let us talk about what happens when Aloka gets to work. Imagine you are a Russian commander stationed in Kaliningrad. You receive orders from Moscow to move a battalion closer to the Polish border. You issue commands over encrypted military radio. Your troops acknowledge everything seems secure, but what you do not know is that 200 kilometers away, a German Aloka team has just intercepted your transmission. They have decoded your encryption. They know exactly where you're moving your forces. They know the size of your unit. They know your timeline. And within seconds, that information is uploaded to NATO's Central Intelligence Network. Polish forces are alerted. Lithuanian defenses are repositioned. American satellites are redirected to watch your every move. You thought you were operating in secret, but you have been completely exposed. That is the power of electronic warfare. It does not just spy, it paralyzes, it creates confusion, it makes the enemy doubt every decision, and it gets worse for Russia. Aloka does not just listen, it can also jam. When necessary, these units can flood enemy frequencies with noise. They can cut off communications between field units and headquarters. They can disable GPS systems so that guided missiles lose their accuracy. They can blind radar installations so that air defenses cannot track incoming aircraft. In a modern battlefield, losing your electronic eyes and ears is like losing your ability to think. Your soldiers become isolated. Your commanders lose control. Your entire strategy falls apart. That is exactly what Germany is preparing to do to Kaliningrad if Putin ever decides to make a move. But Kaliningrad is not the only target. There is another critical piece of geography at play. Here. It is called the Suwalki Gap. This narrow stretch of land, barely 60 miles wide, sits between Poland and Lithuania. It is the only land connection between the Baltic states and the rest of NATO. For years, military analysts have called it NATO's Achilles heel. Because if Russia ever wanted to invade the Baltic states, all they would have to do is close the Suwalki Gap. Cut that corridor, and Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are isolated. NATO reinforcements cannot get through. The Baltics fall within days. That has been Russia's strategy. That has been the nightmare scenario keeping NATO planners awake at night. But now, with Aloka positioned on the Lithuanian border, that nightmare is fading. Because the moment Russian forces begin to move toward the Suwalki Gap, Germany will know. They will detect the electronic signatures of moving tanks. They will intercept the radio chatter of advancing troops. They will see the entire operation unfold in real time, and they will have the ability to jam Russian communications, disrupt their coordination, and buy NATO precious hours to respond. The Suwalki Gap is no longer undefended. It is now covered by one of the most sophisticated electronic shields on the planet, and Germany is not stopping there. Alongside the Aloka units, Berlin has deployed an entire combat brigade to Lithuania. Nearly 2,000 heavily armed soldiers. Not a small peacekeeping force, not a symbolic gesture, a real fighting force, equipped with Leopard 2 main battle tanks, Puma infantry fighting vehicles, PZH 2,000 self-propelled howitzers. This is Panzer Brigade 45, and for the first time since World War II, it is stationed permanently on foreign soil. These soldiers are not rotating in and out. They are staying. They are building barracks. They are bringing their families. They are creating a permanent German military presence in the Baltics. Lithuania is investing over 1 billion euros to host them. That is the largest infrastructure investment in Lithuanian history. And it sends a message louder than any press conference ever could. Germany is no longer hiding behind diplomacy. Germany is ready to fight. Let me be real with you for a second. Most channels would not break this down the way we do. They would give you surface-level headlines and call it a day. But you are here because you want the full picture. If that resonates with you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Tap the like button so this video reaches more people who need to see it. And if you have thoughts brewing in your mind right now, drop them in the comments. Are we witnessing the beginning of a new Cold War? Or is this the only way to stop Putin from going further? Talk to us. The timing of all this is not a coincidence. Right now, Belarus is massing troops near the Ukrainian border. A new airborne brigade has just been established in the Gomel region. That is only 40 kilometers from Ukraine. New barracks are being built. Fuel depots are being constructed, training areas are expanding. Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko claims these forces are defensive. But nobody believes that. Not Ukraine, not NATO, and certainly not Germany, because everyone knows that Belarus is not acting independently. Belarus is a puppet state. Every military move Minsk makes is directed from Moscow, and what Moscow wants is another front against Ukraine. They want to pressure Kiev from the north. They want to stretch Ukrainian defenses thin. They want to open a corridor that could allow Russian forces to strike deeper into Ukrainian territory. But here is the problem for Putin. By deploying Aloka on the Lithuanian border, Germany has effectively split Belarus's attention. Minsk cannot focus entirely on Ukraine anymore because now they have a world-class electronic warfare unit breathing down their neck from the north. Every military communication coming out of Belarus is being monitored. Every troop movement is being tracked. Every signal is being analyzed. Germany has inserted itself into the equation. And in doing so, they have given Ukraine breathing room. They have created a deterrent that forces Belarus to think twice before committing fully to any northern offensive. This is indirect warfare at its finest. Germany is not fighting in Ukraine, but they are absolutely influencing the outcome of the conflict. Now let us zoom out and look at the bigger picture. What we are witnessing is not just a military deployment. It is a complete transformation of European security. For decades, Europe relied on the United States to do the heavy lifting. NATO was strong because America was strong. But in recent years, that dynamic has started to shift. American political priorities are changing. There is growing debate in Washington about how much the U.S. should continue to invest in European defense, and Europe has realized that it cannot afford to be dependent anymore. Germany, in particular, has woken up to this reality. Berlin has announced massive increases in defense spending. They are modernizing their military. They are rebuilding capabilities that were allowed to decay for decades, and they are stepping into a leadership role that nobody expected them to take. This deployment to Lithuania is proof of that transformation. Germany is no longer content to let others defend Europe. They are taking responsibility themselves. But this move also comes with risks. Every time German soldiers move east, old fears resurface. Memories of past wars are still fresh in the minds of many Europeans, especially in Eastern Europe, especially in Russia. Putin has already begun using Germany's deployment as propaganda. Russian state media is painting this as German aggression. They are drawing comparisons to World War II. They are stoking nationalist anger, and they are using it to justify their own military buildup. This is the danger of escalation. One side moves, the other side responds. Tensions rise, miscalculations happen, and suddenly, a conflict that nobody wanted becomes inevitable. That is why what happens next is so critical. NATO must be strong enough to deter Russian aggression, but careful enough not to provoke a war that could spiral out of control. It is a delicate balance, and right now, Germany is walking that tightrope. Inside Kaliningrad, Russian commanders are watching all of this very closely. They know that their electronic advantage is disappearing. For years, they have used systems like the Murmansk BN, which can jam signals across thousands of kilometers. They have used the Krasuka 4, which blinds enemy radars with powerful electromagnetic pulses. These systems gave Russia dominance in the electromagnetic spectrum. They allowed Moscow to control the invisible battlefield. But now, Germany has arrived with tools that can match and even surpass Russian capabilities. Iloka can detect the frequencies these Russian systems use. They can map their locations. They can analyze their patterns. And when the time comes, they can jam them right back. This is a game of chess played at the speed of light, and Germany has just put Russia in check. Let us talk about what happens if this electronic standoff ever turns hot. In a real conflict, the side that controls the electromagnetic spectrum controls the battlefield. If Germany can successfully jam Russian communications, then Russian forces in Kaliningrad become isolated. They cannot coordinate with Moscow. They cannot call for reinforcements. They cannot receive updated intelligence. They are fighting blind. On the other hand, NATO forces would have full situational awareness. They would know where every Russian unit is located. They would know their strength, their movements, their intentions. That information advantage translates directly into battlefield success. It means fewer NATO casualties. It means faster, more decisive victories. It means that even if Russia has more tanks or more soldiers, they cannot use them effectively. This is why electronic warfare is now considered one of the most important domains of modern combat. It is not flashy. It does not make for dramatic footage, but it wins wars. And here is something most people do not realize. Iloka is not working alone. Lithuania has its own cyber defense command. The Netherlands has deployed communication units to the region. Norway has intelligence teams on the ground. All of these forces are integrated into a single network. When a German Iloka team detects a Russian signal, that information is instantly shared with Allied forces. A Patriot missile battery in Poland gets the data. An air defense radar in Lithuania adjusts its parameters. An American surveillance drone redirects its flight path. This is what NATO calls multi-domain operations. It is the seamless integration of land, air, sea, cyber, and space capabilities, and it is the future of warfare. Russia still operates with a more traditional, centralized command structure that makes them slower to adapt, slower to respond. And in a fast-moving electronic battlefield, speed is everything. All right, let us pause for a moment. If you're still with me, that means you are serious about understanding what is really happening in the world. That deserves respect. Show some support by hitting that like button. If you have not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We are bringing you the analysis that matters, and if you have friends or family who need to see this, share it with them. Knowledge is power, but only if it spreads. So where does this leave us? Germany has made a bold move. They have deployed electronic warfare units and a heavy combat brigade to the edge of Russian influence. They have sent a clear message. NATO is not backing down. Europe is not weak. And any attempt by Russia to expand further west will be met with serious resistance. But this is not the end of the story. It is just the beginning. Because Putin is not someone who backs down easily. He has built his entire reputation on projecting strength, on restoring Russian pride, on pushing back against what he sees as Western encroachment. He cannot afford to look weak in front of his own people, which means he will respond. The question is how. Will he escalate militarily? Will he increase electronic attacks? Will he use Belarus as a proxy to test NATO's resolve? Or will he find another way to apply pressure through energy blackmail, cyber attacks, or disinformation campaigns? We do not know yet, but what we do know is that the stakes have never been higher. The presence of German forces on the Lithuanian border is not just about defending a small piece of land, it is about defending a principle. The principle that borders matter, that sovereignty matters, that international law matters. For too long, Russia has violated those principles with impunity. Crimea was annexed, eastern Ukraine was invaded, Georgia was carved up, and the West responded with sanctions and speeches. But words without action mean nothing. Germany has now added action to the equation. They have put soldiers on the ground. They have deployed cutting-edge technology. They have made it clear that the line has been drawn. Cross it, and there will be consequences. This is also about credibility. NATO has spent decades promising to defend every inch of its territory. Article 5 of the NATO Treaty states that an attack on one member is an attack on all. But promises are only as strong as the will to keep them. If NATO had failed to respond to Russian aggression in the Baltics, the entire alliance would have collapsed. Member states would have lost faith. Adversaries would have been emboldened. The security architecture that has kept Europe peaceful for 70 years would have crumbled. Germany understands this. That is why they are leading from the front. That is why they are willing to take risks. Because the alternative is far worse. Now let us think about the human element for a second. These are real soldiers we are talking about. Young men and women who have chosen to serve their countries. They are living in field conditions. They are away from their families. They are operating in high-stress environments where one mistake could have catastrophic consequences. The ILOCA operators sit in those trucks for hours, staring at screens, analyzing signals, making split-second decisions. The Panzer crews train in all weather conditions, maintaining their equipment, rehearsing their tactics, preparing for a fight they hope never comes. These are not video game characters. These are real people, putting their lives on the line for a cause they believe in. And whether you agree with their mission or not, they deserve respect for their commitment. At the same time, there are Russian soldiers on the other side of that border. They are also human. They also have families. They also did not choose to be born into a geopolitical chess game. Many of them are conscripts. They did not ask to be deployed to Kaliningrad or Belarus. They are following orders. They are doing what they are told. And if this situation ever turns into a shooting war, they will be the ones who suffer. Not the politicians in Moscow or Berlin, not the generals in their command bunkers, the soldiers on the ground. That is the tragedy of war. The people who make the decisions are rarely the ones who pay the price. But here's the hard truth. Sometimes the only way to prevent war is to be so prepared for it that the other side does not dare to start one. That is the logic of deterrence. You build up your defenses not because you want to fight, but because you want to make fighting so costly for the enemy that they choose peace instead. That is what NATO is doing right now. That is what Germany is doing in Lithuania. They are creating a situation where any Russian attack would be met with such overwhelming resistance that it simply is not worth the risk. And if that prevents even one conflict, then it is worth every euro spent, every soldier deployed, every sleepless night in a surveillance truck. There is also an economic dimension to all of this that people often overlook. War is expensive, but so is the constant threat of war. Businesses cannot invest in regions where conflict might erupt at any moment. Investors pull out. Economic growth stalls. People leave. The entire region suffers. By stabilizing the security situation in the Baltics, Germany is also stabilizing the economic situation. They are sending a message to businesses that it is safe to invest here, that Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia are not on the brink of collapse, that there is a future worth building. This is soft power working alongside hard power, and it is just as important. Let me ask you something. Do you think this strategy will work? Do you believe that Germany's deployment will actually deter Russia? Or do you think Putin will find a way around it? Maybe you think this whole situation is being blown out of proportion. Maybe you think the media is fear-mongering. Whatever you believe, I want to hear it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let us have a real conversation. And while you are down, you have not already. This is the kind of content that gets buried by algorithms unless people like you push it forward. The reality is that we are living through a pivotal moment in history. The post-Cold War era is over. The illusion that Europe could enjoy peace and prosperity forever without investing in its own defense has been shattered. The rules-based international order that we took for granted is under assault, and the outcome of this struggle will shape the world our children inherit. Germany's decision to deploy forces to Lithuania is a small piece of a much larger puzzle, but it is a significant piece because it shows that Europe is willing to stand up for itself, that it will not be bullied, that it will not surrender its values without a fight. At the end of the day, this is about more than military hardware and electronic signals. It is about identity. It is about what kind of world we want to live in. Do we want a world where might makes right, where the strong can take what they want from the weak, where borders can be redrawn by force? Or do we want a world governed by laws, by agreements, by mutual respect? These are not abstract questions. They have real consequences for real people. And the answers are being written right now in places like the forests along the Lithuanian border, where German soldiers are standing watch in the cold, scanning the electromagnetic spectrum for threats, ready to defend a vision of Europe that is free, democratic, and secure. Russia is watching. China is watching. Every potential adversary around the world is watching to see if the West still has the will to defend itself. If NATO shows weakness, if Germany backs down, if the Baltics are abandoned, then the message is clear. Aggression works, and we will see more OF it. But if NATO holds the line, if Germany stays committed, if the electronic shield holds, then the message is equally clear. There are limits, there are consequences, and those who cross the line will pay a price. The Panzers have returned, but this time they are not instruments of conquest, they are instruments of defense. The soldiers wearing German uniforms are not invading, they are protecting, and the technology they wield is not aimed at subjugating Europe. It is aimed at preserving it. History has a way of rhyming, but it does not have to repeat. Germany has learned from its past. It has chosen a different path, and that choice matters. So here we are. Kaliningrad, once a fortress of Russian power, is now under electronic siege. Belarus, once free to maneuver without consequence, is now being watched from the north. The Suwalki Gap, once NATO's greatest vulnerability, is now defended by some of the most advanced military technology on Earth. And Germany, once the reluctant giant of Europe, is now leading the charge. This is the new reality. This is the world we live in. And whether you find it reassuring or terrifying depends on where you stand. But one thing is certain. The next chapter of this story has not been written yet. And what happens next will depend on the choices made in the coming weeks and months by leaders in Berlin, Moscow, Washington, and capitals across Europe. The invisible war is already underway. Signals are being intercepted. Frequencies are being jammed. Intelligence is being gathered. And all of it is happening in silence, beyond the view of cameras and journalists. But the effects are real. The pressure is real. And the stakes could not be higher. Germany has made its move. Now the world waits to see how Russia will respond. What do you think comes next? Will this electronic standoff keep the peace, or is it just the calm before the storm? Does Germany have the resolve to see this through, or will political pressure force them to pull back? And what role will the United States play as Europe takes more responsibility for its own defense? These are the questions that will define the next era. Share your perspective in the comments. Let your voice be part of this conversation. And do not forget to like, subscribe, and share this video, because the more people understand what is really happening, the harder it is for those in power to act in the shadows. Stay informed, stay engaged, and thank you for watching.